B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, and we have parashat VaEira. A lot of really interesting things in this parasha, and you see how it's relevant to today's world. We just had, unfortunately, the situation in France. Anti-Semitism is running rampant. We have anti-Semitism at a historical high since World War II. The last statistic that came out is over 40% anti-Semitism. So we're really pretty much at that breaking point where there's almost more people that are anti-Semitic than there are people that are neutral or like us.
Right.
But even the 50%, let's say, that there are not anti-Semitic, doesn't necessarily mean that they like us. And that's the thing that happened in World War II that people don't understand, is that there were plenty of people that didn't openly hate Jews. The problem is they also didn't care for us either. So when they saw us murdered in the streets, in concentration camps, and in horrendous situations where they took everything we had, including our lives, they just made it like they didn't see. You know, there used to be an old joke, this comedian in Israel said in the 80s, Dudu Topaz, he said, you know, the difference between Israel and America is that when in Israel, if you fall in the street, something happens, within 2 seconds you have 20 people next to you. What happened? Are you okay? Are you okay? This, that. He goes, in America, you could fall and die on the street. Nobody would just even care. And back then it was a joke. In today's age, it's a question. And that's the reality. So we had a lot of problems happen this week to our nation. And this parashat tells us exactly why this stuff is happening. This parashat is pretty much giving us an antidote of what happened back then, and unfortunately, what could potentially happen, or most likely will happen, in the sooner than we'd like it future. Most people are walking around, if they're not in these parts of the world where there's open anti-Semitism and there's riots and killings and so on, like a lot of people in America are walking, just out of sight, out of mind type of mentality where they don't really, once in a while they see something on the news, they're upset for about 15 minutes, and then they go back to work, and then they go back to life. And they forget about the fact that this was the same exact thing back just 70 years ago. 2 generations ago, it was the same exact thing. Everything was wonderful, and we were leading the country of Germany. We built the country. We helped them become extremely successful. And what happened? One day, it all changed. And all the millionaires and billionaires and successful people that thought that everything was wonderful died a horrendous death after being tortured. So, just because things are nice and great and wonderful, Hashem is telling us that your regular natural life of, going to work, going back home, being with the kids a couple of hours, maybe watching some TV, maybe going on vacation, maybe going into the pool, maybe all of these things, watching a game, and doing all of those things, that is not your mission in life. And when you focus on those things, unfortunately Hashem and you don't have much in common, because Hashem brought us into this world to do something. Now, how do we know that Hashem brought us into this world as something, just a logical thing, and something that the Torah explains to us? Before we get into the parasha, everything has a creator. The Rabbi Amnon Yitzchak said it, and I also heard it from Rabbi Mizrahi. It's a really, really amazing argument. We see anything in the world. Nothing in this world was ever created for no reason. So, for example, you see this cup. This cup, we obviously know it didn't just come from the sky. Somebody created it. It may seem like a simple creation, not a big deal, but somebody created it. Why did they create it? Because they had a mission for this cup to be used, for me to drink tea from it, or for me to drink water, or something. For it to be used to drink. Same thing with this bottle. This bottle was created as a simple, even simpler design. Why? To contain water, and maybe Coke, or maybe something else. So we know that this creation has a purpose. And we know that the creation didn't come from anything. It came from something. Somebody had to do it. So we know that the more sophisticated the creation, the more sophisticated the creator. So for example, a computer that was created by somebody, we know it's obviously the creator of that computer is a smart guy. He's probably smarter than the guy that created the first bottle. It's logical, right? Same thing with the car. And as the creations become more and more sophisticated, we see that the creator is more sophisticated. So the human body is something that we don't even know about 1% of its potential. You know, people are still, amazed at the things that they're just now discovering a small glimpse of about the human body and some of the miracles that are happening within our body that we take for granted. So, for example, you have a body that repairs itself, which is unlike any other material out there. So, for example, if this bottle ruptures and there's a hole in it, it stays that way. If a glass breaks, it stays that way. If a metal breaks, it stays that way. The human body, if one of your kids falls, chas v'chalila, but they fall and they get a little scratch on their hands, what happens? Within a few days, boop, it's like brand new, like it never happened before. And even if there is something that shows a sign, it's just a small little scar, as if it didn't happen. It's just a discoloring of the skin. So the human repair system is like no other creation. And if Hashem didn't create the body with its ability to fix itself, we wouldn't survive a year. Mm-hmm. Because in essence, for you to even operate every day, you have to actually break your body. So for example, one of the things that, if anybody ever spent time in a gym in their life, you see guys that are really lifting a lot of weights. And you ask yourself, if you don't know anything, and let's say I'm an ignorant person, I don't know, why is this guy lifting 300 pounds? Why can't he just be, lifting 25 pounds? Seems so much lighter. Why is he making it harder on himself? And the reason why is because his purpose is to rip his muscles apart. Rip them apart. Why rip him? Why does he want to destroy his muscles? Because when he destroys them, they are going to get puffier, and they're going to repair, but when they repair, they become bigger. And also he builds on strength. So for us to operate even not in a gym, but just our normal life, we're constantly, tearing our own muscles apart. And if the body didn't have the ability to repair itself, we would not survive. And I'm not talking about survive a few years or till 30 or 40 or 50 years old, but I'm talking about survive a year. Survive a week. Because the reality of it is that we're put in a situation that Hashem created such a perfect system that there's nothing like it in creation. Same thing goes with different parts of the body. Now, you have the brain. They're still trying to figure out how the brain works. Why is it that when you're looking into the eyes from inside, everything appears upside down? But when we see it, it's right side up. So if we had to recreate the eye, let's say, and we have to plug it into, let's say, a robot, the way that the eye would work from the inside when you see it to the outside, it would be upside down. But our brain translates the information where the right side of the brain is making the left side work. The left side makes the right side work, but either way, it's upside down.
The brain readjusts.
The brain readjusted. So there's many, many things about the human body that makes it such a perfect system that it's not even remotely close to where we are with technology and all these smart people that claim they're even smarter than they are. It's not even 1% of the Creator. So now obviously we know that the Creator created us with a mission. There's no way that He created a sophisticated machine and He said, you know what, I'm going to create you, go over there, have fun, good luck. Like some people believe, unfortunately, oh, you know what, I come to this world, I work, I eat, I get married, maybe have a kid, maybe not, have some fun, die, turn into a tree, maybe they turn the tree into a book, and just so happens the book becomes the Torah. But realistically, it makes no sense that the Creator, that's much more sophisticated than us, created such a sophisticated creation with zero purpose. Doesn't make sense. Even the guy that created the cup had a purpose for this. There's no one in the world that ever created something, that put something together, worked on it for even an hour, and it made it a finished product, and said, yeah, I created this. What's it for? I don't know. What'd you create it for? I don't know. No reason. Well, What's it going to be used for? No idea. So you just created it? Yeah. For what? Still don't know. Does it make any sense that you just created something for no reason?
So
Nothing. Makes no sense.
What's the purpose of the creation?
The purpose of the creation is told to us in a very, very nice letter from the Creator. It's called the Torah. The only thing that we have in our history, in human history, where there are millions of people, how about this? Forget just millions. More than one person witnessing the Creator talking is the Mount Sinai, which is what we're going to get to in the coming weeks. The only time that Hashem spoke to more than one person,
Moshe.
Moshe is one person,
Right.
but the only time he spoke to more than one person in history, even the other religions, 80,000 religions that are in the world today. Okay, we know of 3 major ones, or 4 if you consider Catholicism and Christianity 2 different religions, even though they have the same basic foundation. You have Catholicism, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. All 4 have the same basic foundation, which is the Torah. Christianity, Catholicism, and Islam claim that they have another book, a continuation of our book. But they all agree with what our book says, because that's their foundation also. We claim that the only ones that have this one book, there is no other book. That's it. So now, they say that, we're asking, where did you get this book? Islam is saying some guy named Muhammad was in the middle of the desert, and he had a visitor that was an angel
In a cave.
come to visit him, and he told him about the Quran. I think it was Angel Gabriel came to him and told him all these things to write in the Quran. The fact that Muhammad was an illiterate, he didn't know how to read or write. I'm not sure how the angel figured that part out, but apparently Muhammad came back with words and told somebody else to write it for him because, again, he was an illiterate. It actually shows in some of the writing itself because there's a lot of constant mistakes. But the point is, one guy claims that an angel came to him. Not even God, an angel. Christianity, Catholicism, they have the same basic foundation of New Testament. A woman that just got married claims that her husband and her were never together. He went away as soon as they got married, without them consummating the marriage. When he came back a few months later, he sees his wife pregnant. She says to him, no, don't worry, I didn't go with another guy. I got pregnant from God. Okay, true or not true, the point is,
Intermediary.
there is no proof. There is no witnesses. Because if you look at it, technically in those times were different. It wasn't not like today where a woman cheats on a husband and somehow there's a divorce settlement where she takes more than him. That wasn't like that back then. A woman cheated on a husband and the woman would not survive the week because they would go to court and they would give her the death penalty and that was it. So if she told him that she was with another man, what's the outcome? She dies. If she tells him that it's God,
I never thought about that.
if she tells him it's God, then maybe he's foolish enough to say it's true. Who knows? Some people even debate whether they exist or not. But the point here is that, again, unlike the Torah, no witnesses. Muhammad had no witnesses. The angel can't be considered a witness because we can't call him. We can't talk to him. Nobody. It's an angel. So Muhammad was alone in the desert. Mary, alone in her room. Husband not even around. Great. Torah, Hashem spoke to many of us, but there was one event that's coming up soon that we're going to talk about. It's called Mount Sinai, that all religions believe in. What's Mount Sinai? You had millions and millions of people. The lowest estimate anyone has is about 3.6 million people. The average estimate is between 15 to 25 million. The largest estimates are numbers that we don't even have enough in the world to count. Huge numbers. My cousin and I tried to do the calculations based on the average pregnancy, which we learned in last week's parashat. To anger the Egyptians, we learned that because the Jewish nation was growing, the Torah uses 6 different words consecutively to show how the Jewish nation was growing, and the Mefarshim are telling us that each word symbolizes a child per pregnancy, meaning that 6 words where the average pregnancy was 6 kids at a time. So if you do the simple math, back then they didn't have birth control, back then they didn't do abortions, back then they weren't stupid like us. Okay, so back then pregnancy was a good thing. They weren't worried about the mortgage. Somebody wanted a house, they take a bunch of pieces of wood, maybe some straw, that's it, you got a house. You want a car? Get a donkey. You want a faster one? Maybe get a horse. Life was very simple. Food, we grow a few things, we eat food, that's it. No, we don't have to afford it, not afford it. So the average woman that wanted to grow the nation, because they only came to Egypt with 70 people, would want to get pregnant. So you have, let's say, in a lifetime of, let's say she's married in her teens, late teens, even if she's married at 20 years old, over the next 15 years she's married, let's say, 8 times, which is relatively normal even today. 8 times 6 is 48. So the average family had 48 kids, which means that every morning, by the time you finish this 15 years, your oldest kid is 15 years old, or 14 technically, 14 to 0, you have to bring a truck every day to feed them. So now, when Am Yisrael leaves Mitzrayim, they say that there was 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60 that left. So if there was 600,000 men between 20 and 60, that means there was 600,000 women, at least. So that's 1.2. Mm-hmm. If they had 1 pregnancy, that's 6 more. If they had, what I'm saying, 8 pregnancies, that's 48 more. And the reason why the Torah was vague and said between 20 and 60 was because you have many, many, many more people that are older, that have been around for a long time. Like, for example, Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't counted in that number. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't important? I think it was kind of important, right? I mean, there's a few books written about him. Actually, he wrote the book. So he's important, but he's not counted in that number. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was 80 years old. So in the 600,000, you can't say that's the only number. Why? Because the leader and his brother, the 2 partners, 80 and 83 years old, they're not counted in the number. So obviously we know there's many, many more that lived that were older, and many, many more that were younger than 20. All the children. So when you do the basic math, you're talking about an astronomical number. We did the math, and it's literally more people than exist in the world today. Not just Jews, I'm talking about more people than exist in the world today. I used to like spending a lot of time in math, doing the calculations and so on and so forth. It's an astronomical number. As a matter of fact, we did also a different calculation, which I think we weren't the original ones to do it, but somebody calculated, if you count the entire population of China, right now China has about 1.5 billion people. Let's say you want to count them one after another. Let's say they all form a line, one after another, and you want to count them. It would take you 41 years. Why? Because by the time you get to certain numbers, they would already give birth. And then by the time you get to the other number, they would also get, the population itself would increase drastically by the time you get to the end. It would take 41 years to make the calculation. So, a lot of really, really interesting stuff. So here's the thing. So Hashem gave us this book. He told us here, I promised to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that I'm going to free you. But I also promised them that you're going to suffer in Egypt first. So the timings, you're going to suffer in Egypt, you're going to suffer for 400 years. Now in Egypt, we were technically in Egypt for 210 years. And out of those 210 years, 116 years we were actually slaves. So it wasn't the full 400 years in Egypt. It started, the clock started with the birth of Isaac. In last week's parasha, we were introduced to Moshe Rabbeinu. And now in this week's parasha, Moshe Rabbeinu is with his brother Aaron, who's 3 years older than him. And Hashem sends them to go talk to Paro and pretty much tell him to free us from Egypt. But Hashem also tells us one thing. He's telling us that I am going to harden his heart. I'm going to harden Paro's heart. and He's not going to free you willingly. So the last few verses of last week's parasha, they went to Paro. They told him they want freed. They want the Jews freed, and Paro made all of the labor much more difficult. He told the Jews, okay, now you were my slaves, you were building these pyramids, you were doing everything for us, now you're going to do it without tools. So imagine somebody's telling you, okay, you're going to work for me, and on top of that, you're going to work for me for free.
Without tevin.
On top of that, you're not going to get paid for anything.
Or something like that.
Without the tevin.
Yeah. So now
Then
you're going
they
to
need
do
also
it
to make it
without tools. You're going to do it, and
double
I expect you to do it the same amount. So Am Yisrael comes to Moshe and starts yelling at him, what did you do to us? So Moshe goes to Hashem, why did you do this to me? Why are you making it harder for him? So that's the first question about the parashat. It ends and it starts this way. Ends last week and starts this week. So the reason is because at that time, the impurity level that we were at, that Am Yisrael was at the 49th level of impurity. And the holy books are telling us that there are 50 levels. The higher the number, the worse it is. And 50 is an unrecoverable level, meaning that once we were at 50, there is no way that we would have been able to do tshuva. Hashem would have not saved us. In Egypt, right before it happened, we were at 49. And Hashem wanted it to end. He wanted to save us. So he said that, I decree that you will suffer in Egypt, but there's a certain amount of time that you have to suffer before your impurity gets lower. If you suffer the same standard that you're suffering right now, it will probably either stay the same or get worse. And if it gets worse, there's no recovery. If I increase it, then there's a reason for me to help you. And that's why it started this way, and that's why He hardened His heart, and that's why the last year that they were there, especially the first 6 months, were extremely difficult, because that expedited the entire decree and shortened the time frame. How is this relevant to today? Many of the Gdolei Ador are telling us that even though there are many Baalei Tshuva, more Baalei Tshuva in the last 20 years, 30 years, thanks to people like Amnon Yitzchak, Rabbi Amnon Yitzchak, Rabbi Mizrahi, Yosef Mizrahi, and many others like them, that specifically target kiruv, meaning they specifically target people that are secular and help them see the truth. This is what we do here. This is what, from their teaching, this is what many other people are trying to do now more than ever. Why? Because of two things. Number one, many of the Gdolei Ador are saying that we are also in the 49th level. Just like the holy books say that at the end of times, we will be exactly where we were in Egypt. Second reason is, we're running out of time. Hashem created the world in a systematic way, as we see from our own body. Obviously, we see this is a very sophisticated design and a very sophisticated designer. If you see the world and the globe and the galaxies and all of the creations that Hashem said, the more you see of this stuff, the more amazed you are at how amazing things are. And it's amazing even to think that one little human being even matters in the grand scope of things. There was a video I watched in this past week. Somebody took a video, or not took a video, to I guess whether it's a video or something from like giving a visual of the entire, of everything in essence, starting from land, starting from the Himalayan mountains, and going into space and outside of the universe, and so on and so forth. And it's amazing of how small we are relative to just the world, and completely insignificant in comparison to the galaxy. But Hashem cares about every one of us. How do we know that Hashem cares about every one of us? It's a good story of one Kohen. Back in those days, the Kohanim were really important people. Not like today, where you have a Kohen that calls himself Mike, that because he wants to be American and he doesn't want to be Jewish. Or you have a guy that's a Kohen, but he's driving to Shul on Shabbat because he wants to see a couple of his friends, not because he wants to pray to Hashem. I'm talking about Kohanim that are righteous. There's many today, but I'm talking about back then. They worked at the Bet Mikdash, and had very, very sophisticated jobs, things that we can't even understand. And I may have told you guys this story, but one time a Kohen says to his wife, listen, we have a business here, but I need to go overseas. I need to go and travel afar because I need to go try to make some business deals and make some extra money. Then I'll come back. But in the meantime, take care of the business. So what was the family business? Part of the family business was that he would check the hair on people. Why? Why is this job so important? So his wife tells him, okay, check the hair. What am I checking for? Checking the hair. What am I checking for lice? Am I checking for if the guy's going bald? What am I checking for? Because no, you have to check the hair to see that things are exactly as they're supposed to be, because the hair is very precise. They're very precise creation. Each hair is being given food by the sweat. The sweat glands are the food for the hair. That's why your hair will continue to grow, because your sweat is in essence the food for every hair. So someone that's not sweating is creating a problem in two ways. Number one, he's probably going to be bald, and number two, he's probably going to be very, very sick and die, because that's also how you take out a lot of the diseases that are inside the body. So he said that the hair is being fed by the sweat, and it's so important to be precise and make sure that everything is right, because if there are two hairs that come out of the same hole, just one time in the entire body, if two hairs come out of the same hole, the person will go blind. That's how precise the creation is. So she says, you fool. You're telling me that Hashem, the creator of the universe, the creator of all creations, worried enough to feed every single hair in our body and to make sure that it has its own hole and it doesn't share its hole with anyone else, doesn't share its parnasah with anyone else, just so it survives independently. And we're not going to get parnasah. You have to go somewhere else to get it. And that's how we know how, if Hashem cares so much about the hair not sharing its parnasah with another hair, because it will be a disaster, obviously, then obviously it means that he cares about us. So he told us in this book that we have a bunch of rules and things to follow, and over the next several weeks, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to learn about a lot of those rules, as we've learned already in the last several weeks. One thing that I'm extremely happy about before I continue, that I think is probably one of the most amazing things that I've seen in my life that I've been a part of, is that one of our group is started to become a Shomer Shabbat, and I think that's amazing. So, Mamash, Chazak u'Baruch Nisan. It was amazing spending Shabbat with you, and really, he's giving him hummus now. Give
a little salt.
only one hummus. No, give him two. Give him two.
Sauce.
Oh, okay, at least with the hot sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shabbat. We're not talking about he just went to the store. Shabbat, give at least a little bit of hot sauce. So, Mamash, Baruch Hashem, to keep Shabbat.
And
it's
we
so
were waiting
important.
for Daniel, but he never showed up.
Yeah, B'ezrat Hashem next week.
Now I know you're a righteous person.
To keep Shabbat is critical. We were just talking about before we started, is that if someone asks you, what makes you Jewish? So an ignorant person would say, oh, my mom is Jewish. That doesn't necessarily make you Jewish. It makes you qualified to be Jewish. But what makes you Jewish? Oh, I have different looks. I like certain foods. So do a lot of people in the Middle East. Those same people that are killing people in France, they have similar customs to a lot of Jews in the Middle East. So that doesn't make you Jewish. What makes us Jewish? There's three things that a Jew has to do in order to make himself a Jew. And as a Rashi Tevot of Shabbat, meaning the three letters, the word Shabbat, each letter stands for a certain word. Shin stands for Shabbat itself. A Jew has to keep Shabbat, has to observe the Shabbat. Bet is for Brit. A Jew has to observe the Brit. And there's many parts of what that means. It does not only mean to have a circumcision. It also includes Tarat Mishpacha. It includes not being promiscuous. It includes a lot of things. And the last one, Taf, Tefillin. At all times, these three things are what Hashem called covenants, signs, brit, All three of them, he called them a brit in the Torah. And Hashem tells us that at all times, you have to have two of them. At all times. So you say to yourself, okay, so every day I do tefillin. Well, Hashem. Every day, I can't keep Shabbat, so I can't do that every day. I only do it once a week. So what's the other one? Brit. I have to keep my brit. On Shabbat, I can't do tefillin, but I can keep my brit, and I do Shabbat. So at all times you have two. That's what makes you a Jew. So when we have one of us becoming a Jew, again, all over again, it's extremely exciting because it makes Hashem happy. And if it makes Hashem happy, that's the purpose of our life. Because in reality, the Creator that's so sophisticated, that's worrying about even a little hair, that worries about our own parnasah, our own lives, and everything that we have, that we take for granted every single minute, if we could do one thing to make Him happy in our day, we have a worthwhile day. So now we're going back to this parashat Shavua. We have our situation here that is telling us not only what happened, but it's also giving us a prophecy of what's happening as we speak. As they were in this parasha in the 49th level, and many, many bad things happen. Many bad things are happening right now. You see that the fanatic Islamic world is growing rapidly and is becoming more violent, not only towards themselves, but also towards us. Anti-Semitism is at a historical high. It's the highest it's been since World War II. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to get better. The rest of the world also doesn't care too much for us. Even the people from, the leaders from France weren't exactly too welcoming for Prime Minister Netanyahu to come to the march. Doesn't make any sense, but it's open. It's a public knowledge that they weren't too kind and too welcoming. But he came.
They were happy that Obama didn't show up.
I don't know if they were happy or not. I don't know.
They were not happy.
All I know is that it's him not showing up is a disgrace.
It was a disgrace, yeah.
Because, it's not like he has to pay for a flight ticket and he can't afford it or something. It doesn't make any sense that he wasn't there. What he was doing was raising money. I don't know what he's raising money for because he's already president for the second term. So unless he changes the law and there's going to be a third term, I'm not really sure what is actually happening. But without really spending too much time on the secular world of politics and things like that, we're seeing that the world around us, if you just pay attention for 5 minutes, is wrong. There's something wrong with this picture. People are dying and no one cares. People are starving and no one cares. Diseases are increasing and no one cares. And I'm not saying that, of course there's many places in the world and agencies around the world that are trying to fix it and so on, but the average folks are just living their life. And our small little nation, even though we have more Baalei Tshuva now than we've had in many years, the problem is that the other side, the people that are not keeping, are also farther from the Torah than they've ever been. When you have, a few hundred years ago, Shabbat as a standard, meaning that to not keep Shabbat was not even, what do you mean, not keep Shabbat? What's happened in the last 100 years, just this last 100 years, which is a time frame that I'm sure we all knew people with, our grandfather, grandmother, or uncle, somebody that lived throughout the last 100 years. You have so many things change in a negative way. So for example, when you have these conservative and reform movements, about 70 years ago or 65 years ago, they made a rule that it's okay to drive to shul on Shabbat. And they thought that, listen, if we can get people to come to shul, we can get them to become religious. I don't know how that's possible because violating Shabbat is pretty much completely disconnecting you from Hashem, but they decided to take their own logic and override what Hashem's instructions were. Problem number one. How does that mature? Because we all know that this is all a domino effect. In the last year, the leader of the conservative movement announced that he's openly gay. And just this last couple of weeks, they said that they're debating whether it's okay or not to have intermarriage. So the question here is, if we just learned what makes us Jewish is the Brit, Shabbat, Tefillin, and you have a movement that calls themselves Jewish, that are doing everything the opposite, how do you expect Hashem to be happy with us? And that's why it's so critical that if we get stronger ourselves, we can have enough energy and knowledge to help each other, and Be'ezrat Hashem be saved from the 49th level of Tum'ah, because there is no other way. And that's what we're going to learn in this parashat, because realistically, all of the weapons, the machines, the airplanes and all of that stuff, none of that stuff really matters. I mean, yes, a lot of people like to think that the weapon system in Israel is the strongest and so on and so forth. Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it's not. It's really irrelevant. Anyone that watched the war that we had this past summer who still doesn't believe in God is just a fool or blind. Because you had over 4,000 rockets land on a tiny little land and no one died. I mean, you're talking about rockets that are 6-8 feet long. I'm not about tiny little firecrackers. Giant. No one dies.
Coming in France.
Have one tiny rocket get thrown anywhere in America. At least 15 people die. And it's not because there's more people, because America obviously has much more land. That's just the numbers. It's just the way it works. You see any tiny little explosion in a gas station or any tiny little accident that happens anywhere, at least a few people die, unfortunately. That's what happens. So when you're seeing all of these things and you say, no, it's not Hashem, it's this weapon system that's protecting us, then you're just blind, fool, whatever you want to call it. Something's wrong with this picture. So
that means that even though we are still not very pure,
Hashem is with us.
God is still protecting us.
Still believe we're going to change.
If he wasn't, we would already be erased from the map a long time ago. And the reason why is because you can just look at the statistics of what things are. The country of Israel is so small that it's smaller than New Jersey. Not only that, the amount of people that we have in Am Yisrael is some estimated 13 and a half, 14, let's say 15 million to be generous. Out of 7.5 billion people, we are 1/4%. There are many, many nations with drastically more people than we do, and you've never heard of them. We shouldn't even be on the news ever, let alone once a year. We're on the news every day. How's that? How, obviously, there's something special about these people. On top of that, we look at the 15 million people. How many of them are Shomrei Shabbat? You have approximately 2 million. So out of the 1/4%, you have 10% of that approximately. So it's 1,000% is under Hashem's radar, is observant of Hashem.
50 million?
15.
15.
And I'm being generous. It's probably closer to 13 or 14.
Yeah.
But let's say it's 15. Let's say it's even 20. It's still irrelevant in the grand scheme of numbers as far as if you're looking at pure numbers. 7.5 billion people in the world. 15 million is a rounding error. Out of those, you have only a couple of million that are Shomrei Shabbat. Out of those couple of million, maybe a few hundred, a couple 100,000. A couple 100,000 that are actually learning Torah all day, but also part of the creation, by the way, as far as tzaddikim. No, there has to be at all times for the world to exist, there has to be 36.
36.
There has to be, in order for the world to exist, it has to have 36. We don't necessarily know who they all are, but they have to, it's part of what the holy books say, that it's part of creation in essence. So now we have ourselves a very, very interesting thing to understand, that if what is the chances of us being one of those that actually keep Shabbat? There's only there's 1,000% keep Shabbat. And we're one of them.
No way. From 15 million, how many keep Shabbat?
Maybe 2 million. Maybe 2.
I think you're loud.
Maybe 2. We're being generous.
I would say
it's close probably between 1.5.
At least 35%.
No. This is go anywhere, you find there's probably about 2 million that actually are religious, not more. It's definitely not 3 or 4 million. It's not that.
So you're talking about 10%.
Approximately. Unfortunately.
He did the homework.
It's
I don't know, where did you read these studies?
No, this is everywhere. You can look this up. Rabbis talk about it all the time. And this is after
It
we've
is.
pretty much doubled.
Uh-huh.
We've doubled the amount of religious people
Yeah.
in the last 25 years. So there was less.
Wow.
This is
But
after doubling
but
it.
it used to be much more.
It used to be 100%.
100.
200 years ago, it was a lot more.
250 years ago,
All the Jewish
keeping
from,
Shabbat
from
was
Morocco.
like breathing.
That's good.
250 years, people didn't even know what it was not to keep Shabbat.
Yeah.
You look at the people in Yemen, you look at the people,
all the people from
they're still
Morocco,
keeping
from
Shabbat.
these, they don't.
They didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, but in today's world, the statistics are against us. And that's after we've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
So realistically, to say that we're any better off than the people in this parasha, not so true. But Hashem still helped them, and Hashem will help us. But we have to help ourselves.
So we are in the same situation.
We're in the same situation, exactly. But it's going to get harder before it gets easier. What can we do about it? The first thing we have to do about it is learn about what Hashem wants us to do. What is our purpose? The designer, the creator, gave us instructions. What does he want us to do? There's a purpose for this creation. This book over here tells us exactly what he wants us to do. So we know the basic of what makes us a Jew, what makes us join this nation. That makes us great. Baruch Hashem, we're all here. Shomrei Shabbat. The second thing is we need to know all the other intricate details that get us up in the food chain. Why? In this book, Path of the Just, it's an amazing book. If someone wants to become a real tzaddik, someone wants to really just learn what Hashem wants, read this book like 30 or 40 times, and I guarantee you your life, one time you'll change your life, twice you'll change your life even more. By the 30th time, you won't even recognize who you are in the past. Or even probably by the 5th time. Point is, one of the things that he says is that fools spend all of their time...
Well, Mesilat Yesharim.
Mesilat Yesharim. Fools spend all of their time worrying about where they are statistically in this world, but about the next world, the eternal world, because here, what are we here? 70 years, let's say. It's a full life. Here, we're worried about, we fight each other. No, I want this position. No, I want the money. No, I want this. I want that. Everyone wants to have everything, even though we're only here for a short period of time. No one knows when he's going to die. It's one of the 7 things that Hashem made a decree that a person, no matter how big a prophet or how low a person they are, no one will ever know. They will not. One of the things is that they won't know when they're going to die. So we don't know if we're going to be here 25 years or 75 years or 100 years. Either way, it's very, very small amount of time in comparison to eternity. Eternity is forever. So all of us are worrying about where our position in this world is going to be, how much money we're going to have, what kind of car we're going to have, and how many houses we're going to have, and all of these things that we worried about all day, and how many jobs, and how many clients, and how many stocks, and how many bonds, and how many women, how many kids, and how many, all the things. The Gemara says that no man ever dies with even half of what he desired. So everything we want, we're always going to want more. That's another thing that the Gemara says. Whatever you give a person, they're always going to want double. You give him 100, you're going to want 200. You give him 200, you're going to want 400. You give him 400, you're going to want 800. And no man dies with even half of what he wanted. So all the work that we're doing, we're still not going to have half of what we have, of what we want. But we're spending our entire life worrying about that. How come we're not worried about setting up a nice little cottage, a nice little villa in Olam Haba?
We don't know how is it.
So that's the thing. So we have instructions of exactly how to do it. And it takes a little bit of studying. It takes a little bit of effort. It takes a part of your life. And that's what he said. If we do 15, 20, 30 minutes a day as a starting point, if you're already at that point, starting to increase it, and little by little making it a bigger part of your life, and living by it, because Judaism, unlike any other religion in the world, is not a religion of believing, like some people think. Judaism is a religion of doing. Believing is for fools, meaning if you just believe that someone's going to save you just because you like to believe, or like this famous movie and movement and at this point already called The Secret, where they say, listen, if you believe, it's going to happen. If you're positive, it's going to be positive. If you believe, then... Okay, well, so you're telling me, so if I just sit here for the next 10 years just thinking I'm going to win the lotto, I'm going to win the lotto, I'm going to win the lotto, I'm going to win the lotto. No, I have to go to the store and buy a ticket. So the belief by itself is useless. There's a doing that's necessary. And that's the difference between us and everyone. Why? Because Hashem told us what we need to do. Just like He told us, you need to know that I am Hashem, not to believe that I am Hashem. There's a difference between knowing that Hashem exists and believing that Hashem exists. Believing is everyone says, yeah, I'm religious in my heart. I believe in Hashem in my heart. Yeah, so the fact that I eat chazir on Friday and I drive to, I drive on Shabbat and I'm dating 3 or 4 non-Jews and, I have all these, and I steal from people and I kill people on the side. Nah, it's no big deal. I believe in Hashem. He helps me. He helps me rob the banks.
Okay, it's not enough.
There's no extent to how illogical our logic is. So Hashem says, if you want to be with me, you want to connect with me, you have to do things similar to me. What does that mean? He does something for us every single second that we exist. So if we could do a few things for Him every day, what's the big deal? So instead of worrying about this world so much, let's split it up. I'm not saying we should all get ourselves little canopies and live there and just read Torah. I'm talking about you could live in this world, you can make your money, you could live your life, spend some time with the family. It's fine, it's great. You have to the Pirkei Avot says in Torah and Kemach, meaning that if in Kemach and Torah. So in order for someone to survive, they have to have a little part of this world. So we have to survive. We have to eat. We have to drink. We have to have, our families and so on. No one's saying that you have to live in some cave, like some of the sages. But at the same token, Hashem gave us 24 hours. Give Him some. So if I gave you, my cousin made this analogy. It's a really great one. If I gave you guys a box of chocolates, really, really special, amazing chocolates from Belgium or Switzerland, wherever they make the best chocolates.
Godiva.
I think Belgium used to be, maybe Switzerland now. Godiva chocolates, okay, that's what we had a couple of weeks ago. So I gave you guys 24 amazing chocolates. Really, you've never seen anything like it, let alone taste something so good. And I say to you, can I have one? Just one. Well, I say, yeah, of course. Yeah, take the whole box. It's yours. You gave it to me, right? At least you're going to give me one, right? He said, can I actually have another one? No, come on, stop asking. Just take. No, feel free, right? So Hashem gave us 24 hours in a day. Can we give Him one? Can we give Him 2? He gave us 24. Makes you think, no?
Yeah, but I think that we're not here to give Him. He doesn't need anything.
It's not because He needs.
By giving Him, we are actually give to ourselves.
Exactly. But the key here is that part of the Gemara also talks about if it was beneficial for man to be created or not. If he was better off not created. They concluded that he was better off not created. Mm-hmm. But since he was created, might as well already, it's good for him to be here. There's many good things that he could win from being here. So of course, Hashem, we still don't know. It's one of the questions that we don't know the answers for. We're only going to know when the Mashiach comes, which is why Hashem created us even. There's different debates. There's different debates of why and who and what.
The purpose is to bring the material to the level of...
Yeah, but he doesn't benefit from it. In reality, he doesn't need anything. He's perfect, which means that anything that we do does not change him in any way. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing does not change his status. He's perfect. So there's nothing we can do to improve him or lessen him. So why did he create us is a very, very big philosophical debate within the Chachamim that they've been trying, that we're going to know one day, B'ezrat Hashem, the answer. Mm-hmm. But the key here is we're here, he sent us here with instructions of what he needs us to do for us to earn our spot in this world. Before he created the physical world, he created the spiritual world. The spiritual world was given only good. Eventually got to a point where the spirits got upset that they were getting only good because they felt like we're only getting and we haven't earned anything.
Right.
So that was part of the reason of why why we were created in the first place. So because if we're sent over here to this world, then we could earn our spot. So now we're here. Hashem gave us instructions of what we need to do to earn our spot. Little by little, we add things to our life. He gave us 24 chocolates. We give him one. We give him two. We give him some part of the day. Because if you think about it logically, it doesn't make sense not to give him one or two. Especially if you believe in him. If you don't believe in him, then we have a different debate to have. But if you do believe in him already, if you say Be'ezrat Hashem, if you kiss the mezuzah, if you do a little tefillin, if you keep Shabbat, you're doing all of these things, even if you say I believe in him in my heart, then you can't really believe that he created everything, but you could be chofshi, you could do whatever you want, and it's okay, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. I'm just going to do for you, you're not going to do anything for me. Because that's, in essence, turning Hashem into the exact opposite of what he is. Because if Hashem is the only one doing for you, and you do nothing for him, then Hashem is not Hashem anymore. It's not the same Hashem. You're turning Hashem, chas v'chalil, you're turning him into a servant.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because if Hashem is Hashem, he's Hashem all the time. Not just when you feel like it. So, going back to where we are here, just the beginning still of the parashat, Hashem is promising us that he's going to take us out, even though Am Yisrael is at a really, really bad place. But Hashem is using 4 different words to give us the promise that he's going to take us out. He uses V'otzeti, Ve'etzalti, Ve'ga'alti, Ve'lakachti. So the sentence goes, Lachen emor levnei Yisrael. He's telling this to Moshe Rabbeinu. Excuse me. Ani Adonai ve'otzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim ve'hitzalti etchem me'avodatam ve'ga'alti etchem bezroa netuya u'bishpatim gdolim ve'lakachti etchem ki le'am ve'ayiti lachem le'elohim ve'yadatem ki ani Adonai. He didn't say you believe. He said ve'yadatem. Yadatem means and you knew. וידעתם כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם המוציא אתכם מתחת סבלות מצרים. So in English, I am Hashem and I shall take you out from under the burdens of Egypt. I shall rescue you from their service. I shall redeem you from an outstretched arm, with an outstretched arm, and with great judgments. I shall take you to me for a people, and I shall be a God to you, and you shall know that I am Hashem your God. So you have several promises here within the same verse, and one critical word that every Jew needs to have, which is v'yadatim, meaning you need to know that Hashem is real. Not just believe. Believing in our heart is useless. That's what everybody else does. We have the instructions. We have Hashem here. We have Hashem in our life every day. We have a way, spiritual and scientific way, to know that Hashem is real. We just have to pay attention. Mm-hmm. So now, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to Paro, and now Paro obviously is not a very big fan of ours. But before this, actually, before the climax, the parashat is broken up. And also something very, very unique, very special about our Torah that makes that you know for sure it's real. This is one of the things. So we have action right now. We have Moshe went to Paro, told him, release my people. Paro said, get out of here, go back to your sorrow, go back to your problems, leave me alone.
So he got hardened.
So
he made the...
Moshe is complaining to Hashem. Hashem says, don't worry, I got your back. I'm going to take care of it. So we got actions about to start. And all of a sudden the parasha is broken up. And it tells us about the sons of Reuven and the sons of Levi. And pretty much the foundation of where Moshe Rabbeinu and some of the other Levis came from. So, wait a minute, I just had some action. It's like having an action movie, and you got the wars about to start, and all of a sudden you have a completely different part of talking about some guy's background, and talking about how the kid grew up, and one day he became this. So why? Why is this happening? Because here it's telling us the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanoch and Palu, Hezron and Carmi. It's telling you all these names. And the son of Shimon, and tells you all of the names over there. And you have the sons of Levi, and he tells you about Amram, the father of Moshe Rabbeinu and his brother Aaron. Why is it here in the middle? Why didn't he have it in the beginning? Why didn't he have it, why now? Because what Hashem wants to show us is that, okay, you know that you're about to really meet me. You're also about to meet me through my greatest prophet, greatest of all prophets, Moshe Rabbeinu. But I want you to remember that it's me doing it, not Moshe. Why? Because Moshe is human. Unlike all other religions, all other books, no Jew that's righteous ever claimed to be God. And here is the proof. Why? Moshe, you know Aaron, great. This is where they came from. Their father was Amram. His father was Kohat. And so he tells you this is where he came from. This is the lineage. He didn't come from nothing. He didn't come from some virgin birth or some magical formula or from a different planet. He's a regular person. And what does that mean to us? We could be the same. Meaning that every Jew is created
with the
potential. What you do with that potential is up to you. And that is important enough for Hashem to break up the action, to break up the story, hey, 1 second, hold on a second. You're about to see me. You're about to see my kedusha, my power, my wrath, and my protection of Am Yisrael. But before you do that, just know what your potential is. Because Moshe was human just like you. If he can do it, we can do it. So now you have the story is broken up, and then we go back. So you have Hashem is telling Moshe, "V'ani akshe et lev Paro," meaning I'm going to harden Paro's heart. And one of the reasons is because he wants to show not only Paro, not only Moshe, not only Aaron, he wants to show the entire world openly. Just a small, tiny bit of what Hashem can do. Now, one of the things we need to know about what this Torah tells us is that Hashem, unlike man, does not change his mind. He does not have a different opinion every other day. Hashem has something with a system called measure for measure. Midah keneged midah. Meaning that for everything good you do, there's something good that he will give you for it. You'll get a reward. Everything bad, you'll get something equivalently bad. Punishment. So, Hashem, that's the real Hashem, approximately half the book, or a third of the book, is the stories and the wonders and the history of our nation. But the other 2/3 to half of the book is the laws and what happens if you don't follow it. So anyone that tells you, listen, it's okay, you're Jewish, all Jews go to Olam Haba, you don't have to do anything, it's okay, pretty much they're canceling half the Torah. So we're going to get to more details of the laws, but again, it's important to know that there is a system of reward and punishment. And we're learning that here in this parashat. So after Paro says he doesn't want to free us, Hashem starts the plagues. What can we learn from the plagues? First thing is that there are a few things that Hashem hates, that we know Mofurash he hates. In the 10 commandments, the first 3 have to do with I am Hashem, have only one God, don't worship other gods. In essence, it's just having one God, is all 3 of them can be combined into it. What does that mean? It means that Hashem is not here to share space with anyone. So that's the reason why Hashem hates 2 things. Number 1 is idol worship, and 2, gava, pride. How do we know he hates idol worship? If you look at the world today, where do you see the largest amount of natural disasters? You have
Japan?
You have in
Asia.
Asia in general, you have
Asia.
India has the most amount of You have places in Thailand, in tsunamis. You guys remember what happened in the last several years? San Francisco that has many earthquakes and things like that. You have New Orleans, a lot of voodoo and things like that over there that obviously had their own issues.
I never thought about it.
So you see the places that have a lot of idol worship in the world are getting the most amount of punishment. That's a natural disaster, not a punishment like an economic, that you could always blame it on something that's for machshava, meaning like you could blame it on somebody's logic. Oh yeah, the stock market fell because there was a bubble, because people were too aggressive, because this, because... Natural disaster can only lead to one thing. Creator made it happen. That's it. If you don't believe in a creator, you have a problem. But again, for reasonable, rational people, natural disasters from Hashem. There is no other way. Natural disasters happening to places with the most amount of idol worship.
Avodah zarah.
Avodah zarah, bidiyuk. So, gava. How do we know Hashem? Gava is pride. How do we know Hashem hates pride? First of all, the first three of our command, of the 10 commandments, is Hashem reminding us He's the only Hashem. So what does that mean? So if somebody has gava and someone has pride and thinks who they are and thinks that they are, something better than what they really are, then the reality of it is that Hashem says, I can't be in the same room with him because there can only be one God. He thinks he's God. I am God. We can't be in the same room. So Paro had ultra gava, to the point where Paro told his people that he's a god. How did he tell them this? He says, I don't go to the bathroom. I don't have the needs that you do. The calls of nature that people have where they go to the bathroom, I don't have that. Yeah, Paro said this. So how did he get away with it? He made a law that between the hours of 4 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the morning, or something early morning, no one's allowed to go to the river, no one's allowed to leave their houses, and that's when he would go to the Nile, and he would relieve himself over there. So the first thing that Hashem did with which it says here meforash, meaning it's literal, not just interpreted, is that Hashem tells Moshe, go to him to the river. That's where he is. Go to him early in the morning, go to him in the river. So he would meet him in the river as he's relieving himself. Why? Because Hashem wanted Paro to know, I know what you're doing. And he obviously, Moshe is seeing this. He's like, yeah, we know your tricks, your nonsense. You're nobody. You're nothing. So that automatically made Paro shrink into a little ball, as far as realize, no one ever saw me do this, so on and so forth. So bringing him down, but it took a little longer for him to wake up.
But in the same time, he also hardened his heart.
He hardened his heart, right? Exactly. So this,
איך הוא תפס כל היום בעבודה הזה שלו?
את מה?
כל היום הוא הולך לשירותי?
Yeah.
כל היום?
הוא לא יצא לבירו.
When someone has, for pride, by the way, just so you know, for kavod, people will do anything. Anything. How many times have you heard about best friends not talking for years just because of the dumbest thing in the world? Something like a bad business deal, or someone forgot to call somebody on his birthday, or someone didn't come to somebody else's party, or somebody didn't give the right gift. They don't talk for 20 years. They don't talk for 5 years. Why? Oh, let him call me. If he calls me, then I'll forgive him. But if he doesn't call me, I'm not going to call him. Kavod runs this world, unfortunately. It's the worst thing in the world. It's the worst thing in creation. But unfortunately, this generation has a big tikkun of kavod. Everyone wants kavod. No, I'll go with him, but he has to call me to invite me. What do you mean? You know, you're best friends with the guy for 25 years. Of course he's going to invite you to the party. Maybe he forgot. But no, people, everyone wants pride. Everyone wants kavod. Kavod, if no kavod,
It's egocentric.
unfortunately, that's the
Egomania.
mentality.
Egomania.
So Hashem, during these plagues, the first thing that we're going to see is Hashem hating pride, but also Hashem hating idol worship. So the Egyptians had several idols. One of them was Paro. So we're going to see this over and over again where Moshe meets him at the river as he's excreting. The second thing we're going to see is that Hashem is going to punish the second idol. The second idol they had was the Nile River. The Nile, the Egyptians believed it was a god because it supplied them all the water and it would rise and so on. So what's the first plague? Dam, turning the Nile River and every water everywhere into blood. But it didn't only say that it turned everything into blood, it also made the Nile River smell. And you'll see this actually several times from the blood and also from the frogs, and even after, that Hashem put a lot of really bad smell all over Egypt to completely destroy the morale and the ga'ava that they had, because you're worshiping this Nile, this water, my creation, you're worshiping my creation. Fools, I'll show you what I can do. And he turns this thing into blood. It's something smelly, something disgusting. And the one thing that we learned from a few parashat, a few verses, or a few parashot ago, Hashem promised Abraham that he's going to, he's told us we're going to go to Egypt. We're going to suffer there. But when we leave, we're going to leave with something in our hands. We're going to leave rich. Now, in a logical way, how can we go from being slaves to being rich? All inside of the same time frame, a year. That's how long approximately it took all these plagues. It was approximately a year, a little less than a year. How do we go from that to that? One of the ways Am Yisrael became rich is through the first plague. It's through Dam. Why? Because Hashem made it that all the water of the Egyptians will turn into blood, but the water of the Jews will not be touched. So now, the Egyptians thought they were smarter than Hashem. They would go and try to beat up the Jews and try to take their water. But as soon as they took the water out of the Jew's hand, it turned into blood. They gave it back to the Jew, it goes back to water. Only way that they would be able to get the water is if they bought it. And that's how a lot of the gold that the Egyptians had transferred right into the Jewish account.
I've never heard of all these stories.
It's midrash. That's the point of the shiur. So it's not. So this is. I'm not making it up. I promise you, I'm not that smart. I cannot make up any of this stuff.
I heard many stories in the Midrash.
Gemara, midrash, several sources. Huh? There's Torah B'al Peh is a lot of things. It's not just one thing. Torah B'al Peh is the Gemara, the Mishnah, the Zohar. Pretty much everything that's written after this is considered Torah is Torah B'al Peh. But the Midrash also, Midrash is, there's not just one source. There's several different things. But they get it. They get it from different verses. They get it from different places. A lot of it was given to Moshe Rabbeinu on Sinai.
תורה שבעל פה זה מסיני.
תורה משה רבנו.
עבר מדור לדור, כל הזמן בעל פה, עד שבא איזה זמן שכתבו את זה.
That's part of it. The Torah B'al Peh you're talking about is the Gemara והמשנה.
כן.
But the Zohar was later, and even more so, all of the knowledge that we have to this day, all was given to us in Al Sinai. It just wasn't all published.
Yeah.
So even the books that our tzaddik is writing today, that gives us new understanding of certain things, that's accepted, that's concurring with the foundation, is still considered Torah B'al Peh. But as far as the Midrashim, will give you a lot of the details of all of the stories. It's really amazing stuff. That's part of the Torah B'al Peh. Midrash is part of the Torah B'al Peh. So now, the one really, really good collection of books that you should get if you want to know the details of a lot of this stuff is Me'am Loez that I keep telling you guys. Me'am Loez. It's a series of books. This is one of them.
Is that the one that you said you should read it over and over until?
No, that's a series of books. That's like 50.
What's in English?
I think the Me'am Loez is like 70 books or something like that. It's in English and Hebrew. Me'am Loez. This is a one book.
Wow, look at this. Pharaoh has given Avram many gifts on Passover Eve.
Yeah, so this book is just one book, Path of the Just. Yeah, this is a book you should read a bunch of times. The one I'm giving over there is a series of books. It's a huge collection.
So I could order that online and
I have books in English.
It's really good, man.
Yeah. I read as much as I can.
It's about the Kabbalah.
The best book.
For me, the Midrash, Gemara, Torah, that's what I focus on. If something refers to Kabbalah and stuff like that here and there, I'll look at it, but I don't want to read
בדיוק כזה עם
the
פירושים
Torah yet.
והכל.
It's not.
a little bit.
First, I need to know everything that's the foundation, and then go into the mystical
It's
stuff.
like page.
So
Page אחד,
the funny thing is, there's so much mystical stuff in the literal translation of the Torah that you don't really need anything more than that. Kabbalah and Zohar and things like that. The sages specifically tells us that you should not even look at it until you're at least 40 years old
Ornithology.
and already know the entire Torah, meaning the entire Torah Ba'al Peh and Bechtav.
No, but I don't read the Kabbalah really.
Yeah.
What I read is
Different-
commentary of, you know,
Commentaries and stuff like
There is
that.
time when you
in the form of a book.
Yeah,
Right.
when you learn something. So
But
they-
the basics,
הערות.
יש איזה רב גדול שהוא כתב ספרים באנגלית, מאוד- אמריקאי. מאוד מאוד מעניין, שכחתי את השם שלו, יהודה.
אמריקאי.
Okay, so going, there's so much, put it this way, there's so much basic, drastically more than what's in the Zohar and things like that. So much basic that you can spend the next 100 years just trying to understand the basics before you even get to the advanced. So there's more than enough to know. I'm not against it, it's just, I'm not, most people in the world should not even think about it because they don't know the basics. You need to know the basic. You need to know, put it this way, you need to know how to ride a tiny little motorcycle or even or a regular bicycle before you're going to even remotely understand what, riding a spaceship. You can't go from nothing to spaceship right away. You have to know how to drive a car first, then go to spaceship. So same thing with the Torah. You need to know what the basic Torah is, know the basic laws, basic Gemara, do the Shas a few times.
Drive a car, drive a box truck, drive a trailer.
Right, little by little go up. You can't go to the spaceship right away.
It's a nice
So the measure for measure, yeah, it's a collection. It's a big collection. It's very, very good. It's amazing stuff. And you also
This is the Zohar, right?
the sources
Zohar
for
is Kabbalah.
sources for Me'am Loez. There's a few hundred sources that he uses to get the information that he gets. So yes, parts of it are from the Zohar, parts of it from different parts of the Torah. I mean, you just look at the glossary. Just one, you have Targum Yonatan, Bereshit Rabbah. You have different parts of the Gemara. You have Yefet Torah, Bachya. I mean, you have countless, probably a few hundred different sources that he uses. One of them being the Zohar. And the goal of this series that makes it unique, more so than other midrashim that I've heard about, not all of them.
How many
but-
times have you read that book?
I read it. Doesn't matter. But there's more. There's a series. There's a lot of books. This is just one. This is just a few
So tell me,
parashot.
how much is the whole set? Do you know what they go for?
A little less than $1,000.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So this buy one after another. Read one, get another one. This is just I think three parashot.
I have the book.
So we have
מסילת ישרים.
50.
הרמח"ל.
We have 56 parashot in the Torah. This book is just 3 of them. So it gives you different midrashim, different understanding of each one, and it's very, very interesting stuff. And also the point I was trying to make is that here he's not only teaching you about the story, but he's also going to teach you how it's relevant to each halacha that we have. And he's in essence, by the time you finish the entire series, you will know every one of the halachot we have, meaning the rules of the Torah. So he's not just teaching you about the story, he's teaching you about why do you do netilat yadayim, why you have to do tefillin in the morning, why you have to do bracha before you eat, after you eat, and so on. So through the story, he's teaching you where we got the laws that we have.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So now, okay, so talking about measure for measure, we have dam. What's the measure for measure here? Measure for dam is that one of the things that the Egyptians did to punish the Jews, to torture them, is that they would make them work and they wouldn't let them drink. They would torture them, and it would, and a lot of them would die that way. So Hashem said, okay, you want to torture my children for not allow them to drink even after you're beating them up and making them work and
taking the
everything.
tools from them.
Taking the tools from them. Then I'll take your water away also. You won't drink either. So that was one of the understandings we have of how Hashem applied His measure for measure in Makat Adam, in the blood plague.
During the, I don't know if I ever asked this question. I don't know if I have to answer it.
Mm.
During the time when they got the plagues, obviously it took more than a year. No?
About a year. The actual plague itself, it says here in the Torah, here actually, as a matter of fact, this verse, chapter 7, verse 25, 7 days were completed after Hashem struck the river. So each plague took 7 days, meaning the dam was blood for 7 days. After 7 days, it all turned back to water. For the next 3 weeks, Moshe would, in essence, warn Pa'ol of what's coming if you don't let them free. And then the new month would start. So you have the next plague for a week, and then again break for 3 weeks.
So the part of the question is that they continue to be slaves at that time.
At some point, approximately 6 months before Am Yisrael left Egypt, they stopped being slaves.
6 months.
Really?
6 months.
So they were still slaves
Meaning
with all the
the-
plagues.
In the beginning of the plagues, not all of them.
Well, that means that the Egyptians got tired.
The Egyptians got destroyed. And we'll see it in these
So-
plagues how bad it was.
So they were slave for Paro for 116 years?
Yes.
So they have blood, the river is bloody,
Uh-huh.
and they're still slaves.
Mhm.
At that point, wouldn't you think they could demand whatever they want?
Exactly.
They
Say,
are.
I'm
They
not
took
working.
all of their money.
Say, I'm not working.
Oh,
took
yes,
all their
they
money.
took their money, you said.
They became rich. I just told you. They just became rich.
Every
All
time.
of the
Yeah,
gold.
but still, it took them 6 months to stop being a slave, totally.
Yeah,
it
but
happened
slave
from the
that's
first
okay.
place.
Jerry. Okay, they are better slaves than we are, because we are slaves to our bosses or our customers every day, and maybe we make parashat to pay our bills and a little bit of extra here and there. They, at that time, I'm talking about, not before, not for 116 years. At that time, they were slaves, but they became all millionaires.
Right.
Every day they would become a new millionaire every day. That's a good kind of slave. That's a good slave. I'd like to be that kind of a slave. My boss is suffering with the plague, and he's giving me all of his
So
gold.
only if
So they didn't
only
really
kind of slave.
suffer. They didn't really
At the
suffer.
end, they suffered because he would make things harder, but they benefited in a great way also. So, but again, this is
only if the Egyptian paid the Jews for the
for the water. They were able to keep.
then it would stay clear.
Yes.
And if they didn't and they took it
Stay
from
blood,
them,
stay blood.
it would get blood.
Yes. So the measure for measure, which again, the measure for measure is the most important part of the lesson here about what we learned from this parasha, from this each one of these plagues, is how is it relevant to us today? Is again, when Hashem is rewarding us, He's rewarding us measure for measure. He's going to reward someone that's giving a lot of tzedakah with possibly, one of, in this world, let's say, He's going to reward him obviously in the world to come. But one of the things that you see, the people that are generous usually are also wealthy. Sometimes not, but again, not every wealthy person is generous either. But the point is that that's one of the ways, the logical ways that we could see that Hashem has a reward and punishment system. If we like to give, Hashem will give us more. If someone is only focused on themselves and doesn't want to give, and Hashem gives him $1 million a year, and he doesn't really use that $1 million a year, he just uses $50,000, $100,000 to live his life, and he keeps the rest of it, and he just saves it and saves it and saves it, and doesn't give any tzedakah, then Hashem says, why am I giving him $1 million a year? Let me give him only $50,000 or $100,000. That's what he needs. So again, the reward and punishment system is a measure for measure system. Same thing with someone that's hurt somebody else. If someone is stealing from somebody else, Hashem at one point or another, not right away like it is in Egypt, but at some point or another, someone will steal from him. Someone that's cheats on someone, Hashem will have somebody cheat on them. So in essence, there's a measure for measure system. So the blood, we knew it because one of the things that the Egyptians did to us is they took our water away. So the next thing after that, Moshe comes back to Paro and he says, let my people go. Paro obviously says no. And the next thing is that the next plague is frogs. Now-
For 7 days.
for 7 days. But one thing that's very interesting about the frogs, you see this also in the Chtav, is that although the frogs
So they
filled the entire nation of Egypt up to the borders, it started with one frog, one giant frog. How do we know? Because you see that when Hashem gives the actual, when the plague starts, it says, "Vayet Aaron et yado al meme Mitzrayim, v'ta'al at tzfardea." Tzfardea is singular.
So they're singular. One.
And then later it says tzfardeim.
More than one.
So it starts, so the Midrash explains to us is that it actually started with one.
One big one.
Why one? The giant frog, but it also showed the bad midah of revenge. You know, the Gemara says that there's nothing sweeter than revenge. Problem is that it's not a good trait to have if you want to revenge somebody. And one of the things that the Egyptians were evil people, so they saw this frog, this big frog, scary frog, so they'd hit it, and every time they hit it, little frogs would come out, and it would hit it again, trying to kill it, and they can't kill it. Obviously, Hashem brought it down here, and more frogs would come out to the point where it literally filled the entire land. It would be in their ovens, it would be in their beds, it would even go inside them. Frogs everywhere. But they would continue to hit it. So you'd think to yourself, what are these people crazy? I mean, they see it's not working. It's not dying. More frogs are coming out. What, are they stupid? Stop hitting the thing.
Right.
Stop hitting it already. But sometimes what happens to human nature, it's so flawed, is that someone is so focused on avenging himself on something that even if they know that they're going to get hurt, they still go forward with it just to hurt the other person. Did you ever hear one of these stories where it's like, listen, if you do this deal, you're going to lose all this money or you're going to lose from it. He goes, I don't care. I'll do it on princip. I'll do it dafka because I want him to lose. Mm-hmm. Like one of these people was, it's a bad trait to have, where he said, listen, I'll spend $1 million on lawyers just to make sure that he loses the $100,000. And in business world, happens a lot. I can tell you from personal experience and etc. But we won't spend too much time on my own life. More
No, but
what's
it's just,
relevant.
you're giving us examples.
But I'm telling you, it's something that
It's like me wanting to lose one eye so you can lose two.
that's unfortunately
You become
that's
blind and I still can't see something.
people's nature is when they forget about, they stop becoming rational. They lose control, and that's what happened with this. It got to the point where these frogs filled the entire land, and the measure for measure. There was a couple of things. Number one, one of the torture systems that the Egyptians had is they would constantly wake up, they would constantly scare the Jews in the middle of the night to go back to work. And they would wake them up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and get them to work. They wouldn't give them time to sleep. So what does a frog do? A frog makes noise. So imagine a frog 24 hours a day making noise everywhere, in your bed, under your
7
bed,
days.
outside, everywhere. They don't know it's 7 days. They think it's forever.
Right.
Just like us. When we think times are bad, we think times are bad forever. When times are good, we think it's going to be good forever.
True.
So they don't know it's going to be 7 days. It's not like Hashem said, listen, it's going to be like this for 7 days, just suck it up. No, they think it's going to be forever.
Right.
So they're suffering, and Hashem said, okay, you want to torture my sons, you want to torture my daughters, you want to torture my people, and not let them sleep and scare them and make noise when and not let them sleep? Okay, you won't sleep either.
So they're not going to sleep either, right?
So that's one of the things. So, next one.
Especially all these frogs. that
Oh, yeah.
noise.
They went inside them, inside their bodies.
Down,
So,
Kinim.
kinim.
איך הם נכנסו ל-
But after the tzfardea, even though the frogs weren't as bad as some of the other plagues, this is one of the plagues where Paro couldn't take it, and he begged Moshe to scream to Hashem to get rid of all these disgusting frogs. And when Moshe prayed to Hashem, some of the frogs jumped into the fire and killed themselves, and some of them just went away. but there was bodies of frogs, corpses of frogs everywhere. And again, it did the same thing, or even worse than what blood did. It made the entire land
Smell.
of Egypt smell. So that's another punishment that they had. So, and one of the reasons why they had that punishment is because they didn't let the Jews bathe and have hygiene and take care of themselves. So that was another part of the punishment, another measure for measure detail. So the next one is lice, kinim. This is not the type of kinim that we know of, where when you're little kids, you know, sometimes you have little lice and your mom takes it and it's a tiny little microscopic thing. That's not the same type of kinim. The kinim that Hashem sent to Egypt were the Gemara says were the size of chicken eggs. So when they bit, they hurt. They bit.
Wow.
And they not only that,
7
but
days.
anywhere there was sand, Hashem turned the sand into kinim, meaning that you'd have to walk on them.
Wow.
At all times, they were everywhere. It wasn't like a like
You can get away from it.
You can get away from it. No, and it was sucked their blood.
Tell me, I want to ask you something.
Yeah,
It was only the Egyptians that were getting suffered, not the Jews,
right.
right? The Jews would just see it for themselves.
That was the big part of the miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Hashem specifically says that, and Moses says it to Pharaoh that you will see that because Pharaoh let this go on because in the beginning he thought that Moshe was just a sorcerer, was like a wizard, he was just making magic, and so he didn't believe in Hashem. In last week's parashat, he's like, "Who is this God that you're saying that I should believe in?" So in the beginning, when he turned before the plague started, when Moshe brought his shaft, his stick, and threw it on the floor and turned it into a snake, Paul said, "What's the big deal?" Yeah, he brought his sorcerers. They threw their sticks and also turned into snakes.
Khartoumim.
Then Moshe's stick ate theirs, but he still, Paul still wasn't impressed. Then when Moshe turned the water into blood, a few of the Khartoumim also turned some water into blood, but they couldn't undo it. Then when he brought the frogs, the Khartoumim also had some sorcery, voodoo type of techniques that were able to turn something into a frog. So again, every time he wasn't impressed. What ended up happening with kinim, with lice, that's when the Khartoumim, it specifically says, it's a finger of God. What do you mean finger of God? It's because the Gemara says that things that naturally are small are something that the evil side cannot interfere with. Meaning that if someone has if it's a human being or some type of animal, something like that, then the evil spirits can control it. But something like a bug, they can't. So when the Khartoumim tried to create these lice or have anything to do with it, they said, no, this is not possible for us to do it. This is beyond sorcery. And they literally said it's a finger of God. So that's when they started realizing that this is more than sorcery. This is something. It's not Moshe's thing. Yeah. So little by little, they're realizing what's happening. But again, the gava that Paro had is higher than anyone else in existence. So he's not going to say, "Oh, I'm wrong. I'm going to let these people go right now."
It's too much of a pride.
Right. So now the kinim had one purpose is to show the Khartoumim that they're obviously Hashem is in control of everything. 2, all the blood that they made the Jews bleed from the beating them up and everything else, the kinim sucked it out of the Egyptians, and there's several other things that it was measure for measure again, punishment for what they did. The next one is E'arov, which is wild beasts. So now when you think of wild beasts, you're thinking of, lions, tigers, stuff like that. Hashem is different. Hashem said, I created many, many creatures. He made over 2 million species. Anything that can kill, will be in Egypt. So if it's a polar bear, which by the way in today's world is the #1 human killer, we'll bring him to Egypt. How are you going to bring a polar bear to Egypt? Egypt is a desert. If it's a Bengal tiger, I'm going to bring him there. If it's a lion, I'm going to bring him there. It's a snake, I'm going to bring him there. Anything that can kill would go there. Why? Because he wants to
The
show...
mirror is moving.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's okay.
He wants to show his significance. He's not human. He's not limited to human limitations. So with the polar bear, he brought the ice. With the tigers, he brought the forest. So everything that their surroundings that they needed came with them. And they only hunted the Egyptians. So even when the Egyptians tried to hide inside the Jewish houses, the animal would come in, kill them, and leave. There was no way of hiding. And again, the Gdulah, the significance of everything that Hashem was doing was more and more obvious with each plague. Now, unlike the frogs that died, or the lice that turned back into sand and many died, the wild beasts left. They didn't die. Why? Because Hashem didn't want the Egyptians to benefit out of the plagues, because he knew that if the wild beasts die over there, if he just kills all of them, then yeah, maybe a few Egyptians died throughout the whole thing, but then they're going to turn all of these animals, these exotic animals, into different things that they can make money off of. Jackets, a wool jacket from the Antarctica in Egypt costs a lot of money. So all of the animals went back to where they belong. So again, everything was very, very precise, very, very interesting. One of the measure for measure with the wild beasts is that the Egyptians would send the Jews, different Jews, on dangerous missions. They'd send them to the wild and different places to hunt different animals, and they say, don't come back without that animal. The thing is, though, is that coming back with that animal usually meant that just the animal's coming, not the person. Because it was a suicide mission.
But they came back with the animal.
But so Hashem said, okay, you're sending my children to get killed by wild animals. I'll send wild animals to you. Let's see how you feel. Next one is Devel, epidemic. This is killing Egyptian cows, horses, sheep. The rams, Arius is one of the things. And this one had several measure for measure. One of them was the fact that an Arius was one of the idols, one of the gods of the Egyptians. Remember I told you guys they had three gods. They had the Nile River, they had Pa'o, and they had the Arius. So Hashem showed them, okay, I'm going to kill your god to show you how pitiful everything is, and he created this plague that specifically focused on those animals. Pretty much, again, took more and more of their wealth, because most people were farmers in those days, and this again took more and more of them. There's only two more in this week's parashat of plagues. There's boils and then there's hail. Boils was a skin disease, like giving a skin disease, in so many words, that to all of Egypt. And again, this was one of the ways that Hashem made all the wizards and Pa'o shrink to the nothing that they are, because even the Khartoumim were too embarrassed to see Moshe when they got this, because they were itching and they couldn't bear the pain. And there was not even a second during the day that someone wasn't itching themselves. And they got to a point where they made a line, a never-ending line, because everyone couldn't reach everywhere that they had to itch. Everyone would scratch each other. And they would suffer the whole time. And there was the measure from that was, again, another punishment for not allowing the Jews to bathe and have good hygiene and causing them to become very sick. The last one is actually one of my favorite ones, which is hail. In the hail plague, Hashem showed one of the purposes of this plague was to show Paro and us and everyone that Hashem is above nature. In the scientific world, and in the world in general today, the vast majority of the world that's secular, they constantly think that science is, more advanced than the Torah, and the Torah is behind, and Torah is ancient and not relevant, and so on. And the reality is that science has never proven anything wrong about the Torah. The only thing that they've done over the last, several decades is actually prove the Torah has been right all along. It's never proven it wrong. There's theories, but no proof. And there's a very big difference between proof and theory. So now, one of the things that people always say that they for example, when they see a miracle happen, say, no, it's a chelek ma'ateva, meaning it's part of nature, it's supposed to happen, it's an accident, it's a coincidence, and so on. And one of the ways that Hashem said that He's going to hide Himself, He's going to hide Himself, but in plain sight. How? Teva, nature. How do we know? The Rashet Tevo, the Gimatria of the value of Hashem's name is the same value as Teva in the Hebrew language. So, in this particular plague, Hashem showed everyone that He's above nature. How? The hail, first of all, was gigantic, but inside it specifically says in the Mefurash, not in the. This is not Midrash. This is specifically what it says in the Torah, that each hail ball was full of fire. Now, if you were ever a kid, you always played with fire at some point, and at some point in our life we saw snow or ice, and the two don't mix. It's either one of them survives. Both can't survive at the same time. And each ball was a giant ball that had literally fire inside it. So it was like, these bombs falling on the Egyptians. And in this particular plague, Moshe told Pharaoh, tell your people to stay inside, because anyone that goes outside will die. So he's even warning him, not only that the plague is coming, but to stay inside. And some Egyptians actually listened and stayed inside, but many didn't believe still, and they went outside, and it talks about how they got killed instantly. But again, Hashem shows us how He's above nature in the literal part of the Torah, not just the Midrashim. One of the other lessons that we have as far as measure for measure about this one, and 5 minutes before we finish, is that the noise that was happening during this particular plague was by itself torture to the Egyptians, to the point where at the end of this parasha you're going to see that Pharaoh is begging Moshe to have him stop the noise, not just the hail, but the noise.
Squeak.
Because it's like the thunder and things like that. Scary noise, loud noise. That was thunder, and things are coming from the sky, and it was a very, very scary noise. He was petrified from the noise. So you're going to read this also in this week's parasha. I know you guys are all tired, so I'll let you guys go, but I'll give you guys a good story to go home with. The three last plagues are actually next week's parasha. This parasha,
okay.
This week's parasha has only 7 of the plagues. There's 3 more next week. If you have an energy, I'll give you the other 3. I'm ready if you're ready. But it seems like you guys are all tired.
בפרשה הבאה.
You guys want to know all? You want all 3 more next week?
Coming soon.
So yeah, I'll give you guys a story of something that's really
All right.
Continuation.
really amazing about how people run away from Hashem. And I heard this actually from one of Rabbi Mizrahi's Hebrew lectures. people run away from Hashem, and only to realize that they needed Him all along. So one time there was a rabbi, I forget his name. He's a very famous rabbi that wrote a lot of songs, and it's a true story, by the way. So I forgot what his name is. I'll remember it and I'll tell you guys the name. So he was a very famous rabbi. He wrote a lot of different songs, and he goes on an airplane, and sees a stewardess. She's very ultra nice to him. Very nice girl, young woman, and he sees she doesn't have a Jewish name, but she says she's ultra nice to him. And then he sees during the flight, he sees her, opening a book that kind of looks like a siddur, and she's moving like a Jew. She's praying. He doesn't think too much of it. He's strange, but okay, beseder. Towards the end of the flight, the woman comes to him and she says, "Rabbi, can you help me?" He goes, "Yeah, sure. What can I help you with?" And she says to him, "Listen, I'm not Jewish, but my boyfriend is Jewish, and I really, really love him, and he loves me, but his parents won't accept me." And he goes, "Well, you're not Jewish," she said. He goes, No, you don't understand, Rabbi. I am in the process of converting, and I actually just keep more now than they do. They keep nothing. I keep more than them. But they said that even after I convert, they don't want me. So can you at least talk to them?" And the rabbi says, "Yeah, sure, okay, yeah, why not? You seem like a nice girl." So she goes, "Yeah, I live in this town that we're landing in. Here's my phone number, and here's their phone number." So the rabbi calls the boyfriend's family's house, and the father answers, and he says, "Hi, how are you? I'm Rabbi so-and-so." He goes, "Yes, I've heard of you." They have some small talk. He goes, "Listen, I met this young woman, very, very nice girl, and apparently she's in love with your son. And, she's in the process of converting. I mean, why don't you want her?" What? No, Rabbi, listen, I only listen to you because I know who you are and I respect you. And I'll listen to you for a little bit, but as far as that girl, no, we don't want her. My wife and I are survivors of the Holocaust, and we've had already enough of of that part of the world. We don't want anything to do with it. She's a nice girl, but let her be nice to somebody else. We don't want it. The Gentiles tortured us enough. We don't want that." He goes, "Yeah, but listen," he tries to convince him. Nothing. What are you gonna do? So Rabbi calls the girl, and her father picks up. He goes, "Hi, who are you?" He goes, "Oh, I'm Rabbi so-and-so, and I actually met your daughter earlier today. She asked me to call her boyfriend." He goes, "Oh, and what did they say?" You already knew about this. "What did they say?" And he said, "Not so good. The guy's a nice guy, but he says that he's a Holocaust survivor and he's had too much bad experience already. He says, we don't want him anyway. Our daughter's too good for them. If they don't want her, we don't want them. And their excuse of being Holocaust survivors, we're also Holocaust survivors. So what's the big deal?" He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, Yeah, we're also Holocaust survivors. Our daughter doesn't know we're actually Jewish, but the problem is that we had such suffering in the Holocaust that we pretty much told her that she's not Jewish her whole life because we didn't want it to ever happen again."
It happened in reality.
So
Wow. So
the rabbi's like, "Wait a minute." The guy's, "Wait a minute. So you're telling me you're Jewish?" He goes, Yeah, but she doesn't know. She doesn't know." He goes, "Hold on one second. So you're telling me that your daughter is trying to convert, but she doesn't need to convert?" He goes, Yeah, Rabbi, the worst thing is happening." He goes, "Worst thing? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Please, come to my office." And he says, "Come to your office for what?" He goes, "Please come to my office as soon as you can." Talk for a little while, he agrees. Calls the other guy. He goes, "Listen, you're never going to believe it." He goes, "Rabbi, I told you already, we don't want her." I'm like, No, you don't understand. The whole problem is, if one of you guys can look at it, if the whole problem that you guys are concerned about is about her being converted or anything, but she doesn't need to convert, she's Jewish." He goes, What? And so he tells him, listen, she's really Jewish. He goes, I'll check it out. He goes, come to my office, come to my office. So he agrees, comes to the office. So now the boyfriend's father is sitting there with the rabbi. They're talking, and with the boyfriend, and then all of a sudden, and the mother, and then on the door, the other people knock on the door. The father is the first one to come in. The daughter is right after,
And the mother.
and the mother. Hello, hello, and then he sees the other guy. He says, Misha,
From the Holocaust.
Shalom. And they start crying and hugging and
So they remember each
and no
other.
one knows what's going on. Goes, what's going on here? It's like, I know this guy. We used to be chavruta from the age of 0 until 17 years old. And when the Nazis came, we promised each other that if we survive, you remember what we promised each other? He goes, yeah, I remember. We promised each other that if we survive, maybe one day we're going to live next to each other and our kids will get married.
Wow.
And look at this. I've been running away from Judaism since the Holocaust. The other one is like, I've been running away also. And Hashem had a different plan for us.
It's a real story?
Real story.
I heard a crazy story like that also.
Real story.
Do you know that the head of the Nazis in Hungary was Jewish?
Yeah, those
You
many
didn't know.
Jews. Many Jews. As a matter of fact, many
I
of
hear about this
the...
guy.
I didn't know.
And he
Now he become Jewish. Yeah, I mean he become
crazy. He was in Nazi.
He was the head of the
Flaga
Nazi,
Nazi.
the political
Flaga
party.
Nazi.
And he became
Yeah.
what? He
You hear
became
about
what?
it?
Yeah.
He became
many of the...
Jewish?
He
as a
didn't
matter of
become
fact...
Jewish. He
Yeah.
was Jewish. His mother didn't tell him. Like the same story.
Yeah, and he see
One
the
of-
number.
His mother was always
She
in a
hid
long
it.
sleeve
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hide the number.
One of the...
She suffered so much from the Nazis. She said, I don't want my kids to know about even.
One of the things that's happening in our generation, unfortunately, is that many of the terrorists that are in the Gaza Strip, bombing Israel, torturing us, all of that stuff, many of them are Jewish. They just don't know. Because what happens, they estimate that over 60,000 Israeli women have married Arabs. Which means that the children are Jewish, but they're not being told that they're Jewish, obviously. So many of these guys that are terrorists, that are bombing us and hurting us and terrorizing us, don't even realize that they're Jewish.
There is some.
Many, like not talking about like
There is some Palestinian
thousands,
family that
many
they
more.
still light up the candles on Friday. They don't know why.
הם רוצחים את עצמם באותו רגע.
לא, יש הרבה פלסטינאים.
It's not many of them.
זה לא מצחיק,
Sad. But that's actually, believe it or not, if you what we just talked about this last hour, measure for measure, right? That, if you think about it for a minute, after the sadness, is measure for measure punishment. Hashem says you marry them, and you pretend like you're one of them. He's going to also, your son is going to end up going against us also and getting a double punishment on that.
You know, I met a client today and we were talking about Israeli marrying an Arab, so she's telling me her sister, she's in love with this Arab and they're getting married. I'm like, are you serious? She goes, yeah.
There is a lot of them.
Sad. בסדר.
מעשן סיגריה? הוא מעשן סיגריה.
היא מדברת עברית ומקלמי.
ברוך.
חזק וברוך, אחי.
Thank you very much, Bezat Hashem. We'll continue to learn more tonight if you guys wake up.
Can we bring